Good evening, and thank you so much for tuning in to our Wednesday night enrichment. During the entire month of March, we'll be highlighting women of Macedonia. Of course, we have 3 different segments, and we'll have the second Wednesday, third Wednesday, and fourth Wednesday. So we invite you to come and tune in. But we just wanted to make sure that we paused and celebrated the women of Macedonia, celebrated their journeys, and listened to their stories of impact and how what they've done in their life has made it easier for those who have come after them. I have with me tonight 3 wonderful ladies who are going to come and introduce themselves in their own way. Sister Heritage, Sister Lovelady, and Sister Shadrach. Thank you so much for taking the time out of your busy schedules to come and be a part of this wonderful panel discussion. Sister Heritage, I'll turn it over to you.
Good evening. My name is Fanny Heritage, and I am honored to be here this evening. I am honored to be a part of this panel of discussion this evening. I am relocated from Buffalo for some 35 years ago and was a member of the Mount Calvary Baptist Church in Buffalo until I joined the Macedonia Church on October the 20th, over the 9th, 2016. Prior to moving to Albany, I was employed as a deputy sheriff with the Erie County Sheriff Department. And upon relocating here, I was employed with the New York State Division of Criminal Justice as a program criminal analyst until my retirement.
Yes. Good evening. My name is Sister Harriet Lovelady, and I too am very honored to be a part of this panel. I am the mother of 5 daughters, 11 grandchildren, 2 angels, and 5 great-grandchildren. I was born and raised here in Albany, New York. Worked for New York State for 31 years as a secretary. When I retired just to stay home, take it easy, and take care of my grandchildren. I have 2 grandsons that are autistic, and I spend a lot of time with them. They're autistic and nonverbal, and I love them to death. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Betty Patterson Shadrach, and I'm from the Midwest, Kansas City, Missouri, and I came here with my husband, and we've been here for over 50 years. We have had a very interesting life, a joyous life. I have 2 sons. I'm an educator by training. I worked at the University at Albany. I've done community-based work. And when I retired, I said I was going to just kind of slow down, but that's not really who I am. So I now work with some children on the south end of Albany, helping them with their reading, and I'm the board president. And just this journey itself has just been fascinating. And with God at the helm, I know whatever steps I take, He will order them.
Amen. Well, again, thank you, ladies, so much. We're going to jump right in. This segment for this Wednesday is entitled, Because They Walked, We Can Run. And we are so appreciative of your journeys. 3 very different paths to where you are today, but because of the paths you've taken, there have been many who have come after you, have been able to take that same path. What was it like coming up as a young girl and then as a woman in society? And anyone, if you can jump right in.
I would say that I had a very good upbringing. I had 2 wonderful parents, and I come from a family of 9, 6 boys, and with myself It was like 10 of us, 4 girls. And with a family that big, sometimes people seem to think that, well, you never get a chance to do everything that you want to do. But I am very proud to say today that my mother and my father, my aunts and my brothers and my sisters, they all were there for each of us. They encouraged us. They helped us with our schooling. It was a pleasure to be able to join different little organizations like the Brownies and the Girl Scouts. And so I am just happy that my childhood life was very good. And as I got older and started seeking careers, jobs, and that became something different. That was a big difference for me because it was a thing like when you go to apply for something, they look at you not about your experience or your education. They look at you mostly about your race. And so that was kind of hard for me to accept because I never experienced that as a child. Because I have friends that was Caucasians and all kinds of races. And so I thought that this was something that was kind of difficult for me. I can remember when I first went to the sheriff department, there was no one there of color. And it was kind of difficult and kind of hard because I was being there where most of the people that were being held in the jail were people of color. And I just had to take a second guess of how I was going to manage being in that position. But as time went on, I went to my pastor, and he was a great help. He says, stop crying, go back. I said, no, I can't do this. He says, oh, yes, you can. We need you there. If they decided to hire you, you need to stay there because you can help somebody. So I want you to go back and I want you to just do the best that you can and you'll see it all start panning out for you.
Awesome.
So it did. It did. I finally realized how I could be of help because there were parents that had children that had been locked up for minor things, taking a package of cigarettes. How do you do that for a child, a young person, to destroy their career and their life? So they would come to me and they would say, well, the thing is that you should teach him a lesson. Maybe I should let him stay here. What do you think? I said, sir, I don't think that's a good idea. Because there were people in there that was locked up for much more serious things than a child taking a package of cigarettes. So you can leave them there, but then you don't know what effect this have on them when they come out, being in an environment with people that are mixed with much more higher crime than they have done.
Right.
Which I thought was awful. So they said, well, you think maybe I should get them out? I said, if you know anyway that you can get them out, get them out.
Awesome.
Because this is nothing that they need to experience so early in life. And so it worked out. And also, it was a time where one of the instructions that they made very clear is that you do not give any information. Well, it was hard for me to just sit there and someone would come and say, is my son here? His name is so-and-so. Is my daughter here? And to be able to say, well, no, I don't know. I don't know. Maybe you should check with the PD. To me, I felt that was wrong. It's called the runaround. And so I've finally found a way to get the message to people when they would ask that question of me. You know, you kind of say, wink your eye and let them know that, okay, just hold on 1 minute. And you look around and you don't see anybody looking over your back and you give them the information.
Thank you.
So it worked out very well, and I enjoyed my job here. Matter of fact, I would have still been working at the sheriff department if we didn't get transferred here because of my husband, who was with the state police, and he was a captain out in Canandaigua. And so he got promoted to major at Troop G.
Well, let me just
say. So that's what brought us here.
Well, we're happy that Deacon Heritage got transferred to Troop G, because when he got transferred, you got transferred too. So y'all are both here. Thank you so much for sharing your story. Sister Lovelady.
Well, my background is very different. I was brought up in the south end of Albany, New York. Albany, New York back at that time was a melting pot. So we didn't have much racism, or as a kid, we didn't know racism. And I didn't know anything about racism until I went in 1954. My father took us to Georgia. And my aunt took us to a Woolworths. I went running over to the counter, and I'm going to sit down. Oh, she snatched me back so fast. And she let me know then that I could not, and then she took us around and showed us the back of the building where we could only black only could go to the bathroom and such. So I didn't know anything about racism. Like I said, brought up in the South in Albany. I married very young to my husband, Carl Lovelady. We've been married for 63 years.
Wow. That's awesome.
Thank you. And during that time, I raised a lot of kids from the South End along with my kids. My house was always full of kids. I love kids. It was always something going on in my house. So, and I had one little girl that stayed with me for 6 months. Her mother passed and her father asked me to watch her while they had the wake. And he never came and got her. 6 months. So I took care of this little girl for 6 months. And then one day, out of the blue, her grandmother called and asked could she come and get her. And I said, of course, because I had a house full of babies. But then when my last child went to grade school, that's when I decided to quit. And I went to work for New York State, stayed there, like I said before, 31 years. I've had a very simple life, but a very happy life. I've only had two sorrows, and those were my 2 grandchildren. Of course, my mother and father, I lost them. But like I said, I've had a very happy and simple life. Thank God. My children were all brought up in church. I was brought up in church. I was at Walls Temple. Let's see, I was 7 years old when I went to Walls Temple until I came here to Macedonia about 5 years ago. And I'm very happy here at Macedonia.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Sister Shadrick?
it's amazing how when you look over your life and you think of the folks that touched you, and obviously my parents, my grandmother, my aunts, and my siblings. I come from a large family. There were 6 of us. And I say my mother had us in stages. There were 3 that were a year apart. I was sandwiched between 2 brothers. And then 5 years later, a sister. And then 10 years later, another sister. And then 15 years later, the last sister. So I was the oldest daughter. And my 2 brothers have now gone on home to the Lord. So I'm like the matriarch in the family. And that carries a great deal of responsibility, but I don't feel lost or concerned. I just know that when God is in the plans, things work out. And there have been problems that we've had to overcome, unfairness, because I grew up in the Midwest and I witnessed the discrimination firsthand. When I was in college, I worked at a Kansas City Star, which was a newspaper, and they wanted to, quote, integrate. So they asked me to come and work in the ad department. So I was taking ads, and I was the first Black to do that. And I was still, in college, and so I had to overcome some things. But I remember a woman saying to me, she said, "Betty, if you can get that chip off of your shoulder, you can do anything." And I thought, this was a white woman saying this to me. I said, "Oh, she don't know what I've been through." But then, she was right. And so I kind of shifted, and now I've definitely shifted. I take people as they are, and I try to live my life in a way that brings honor and glory to who I am as a person, the values that were instilled in me by my parents. And I had some wonderful teachers as a child. One of my professors was Dr. Jeremiah Cameron, and he taught us English, and that's how I learned how to write. And he always said, "Tell the truth and shame the devil. Aim high. Don't let anyone steal your dreams." And we studied Shakespeare and Charles, all kinds of things, but he instilled so much in us. And there were other teachers too. I know when I went to Grambling, and I had a teacher, and I was in statistics, and I was in my senior year. And she said, "You're going to have to do better than this. I'm not going to give you a B. You got to get the A that you're supposed to give. So I'm giving you an incomplete." I remember going back to my dorm, crying my eyes out, because I was satisfied to get that B, but she was not going to let me do that. So I had to buckle down and work harder and get the A. And now I look back on that and I say, she saw something in me that I didn't see in myself. But it just shows you how people can be so loving, and people come in your life for seasons, and then some stay longer. But through it all, it's a journey, and it's an exciting journey. When I look at some of the things that I've done in life, and I knew in the 5th grade that I wanted to work in an arena where I could help people that were disadvantaged, that were poor and disadvantaged. And I knew that that was my calling. And I've been fortunate, really fortunate, to play that out in many arenas, in elementary school, high school, college, the university, in various places, community-based work. And in each of those areas, there's always been that effort to improve the lot of people that were disenfranchised, discriminated against. And so I felt that was my calling. I think hopefully God's pleased. I know I want to continue to please him.
Awesome. Thank you so much. You all mentioned a period of time. Sister Heritage, you mentioned deputy sheriff in a organization that didn't have any people of color. Sister Lovelady, you mentioned going into a Black-only bathroom in the back. Sister Shadrach, you mentioned and spoke to discrimination faced in the Midwest. Mm-hmm. Can you kind of give us some insight on what it was like coming up during the civil rights movements, and how you managed to navigate racism and sexism and discrimination on various levels?
I want to say that with the Christian life that I had, that is what held it together for me. That is what held it together, because I had a pastor that I could go to and I could talk to about those kinds of situations. I had sisters in the church that would help you through things like that. So I say that even today, and even back then, if it wasn't for your parents and your teachers of color that would encourage you that you can make it regardless of all the racism, all the things that were going on around you, that there was someone to encourage you and to lift you up. And being a part of a church family is important. I think today that if you are raising a family, I have 4 children, and they were raised in the church, just like I was raised in the church. There are some schools don't teach anything, even today, about racism. What you have to learn from your grandmother, your mother. That is what you have to learn. And they would always tell you how you have to be careful of this and careful of that. I experienced a really bad thing that happened to me. I visit back to Georgia, where I was born. And I had a cousin, and she lived there. And so my aunt said, well, then, okay, you girls can go to the movie. And so we decided we were going to go to the movie, and another cousin. It was 3 of us. So when we got to the movie and we went to purchase our ticket, I was told that I could not sit with them. I am a very fair-skinned person. And this dark color hair you see now was red. So I was amazed because I had never experienced anything like that. And I said, excuse me, why? She says, because you cannot sit with them. You will have to sit downstairs and they will have to go upstairs. Well, I always had that like, okay, you're going to have to talk to me better than this because I'm not understanding this. And she said, because they are Negroes and you are white. I'm like, no, that's not true. That's not true. And it was very hard because I was like about 13 years old, a teenager. And I had never experienced anything like that as living in Buffalo. But so to make the story short, we didn't go to the movie because I wasn't having it. I didn't feel it. You know, you're not going to separate me from my family.
Right. Thank you.
Yeah.
Well, like I said before, I never really experienced racism. I didn't know it as racism. The one thing that comes to mind was when I was in high school and the teacher told us, or she told the black kids in the class that they would never go to college, that we would only work for the state or the telephone company. So that didn't really give anybody an incentive to go to college. Plus, my parents they were both from the South, and both of them had very little education, although my father was the second black man in Albany to own a business. and he had a oil business which he had for over 30 years, and then he went into driving a taxi until he retired. So we were, like I said, racism didn't really come into me or my family. My girls, when I brought them up, I just brought them up and told them, you can be anything you want to be. And they all succeeded. They all have good jobs and worked hard and raised their families. So I can't really relate like other people can relate to racism.
I can recall when I was in 4th grade, and I was in an all-black elementary school. And the principal came into the class, and he drew two a picture of a person's face and another person's face. And on one, the person was smiling, and on the other one, the person was frowning. And then he said to us, we are now going to, you're going to have to go to another school. And that school is going to be predominantly white. And so even though you're going to leave this environment that you're comfortable with and go to another school, you're going to be, eventually you'll smile. And so we went. I went to an elementary school called Jaeger. And when I went there, it was predominantly white. But in less than 2 years, that school had changed. It was predominantly black. So the folks that were there, we did what we call white flight, and they went to the suburbs. And so we were still there. But even then, the teachers that were there were phenomenal. I had Dr. Hancock and Dr. Smith, and just wonderful teachers. And we learned so much. And one of the things that was instilled in me by my parents as well as by other folks that was so key and pivotal in my life was that you don't let anyone define who you are. You define that for yourself. And if things are rough, you just buckle down and persevere and keep believing, and things will come together. I'm going to share a story. My grandmother was phenomenal. And I inherited my small stature from my grandmother, and from both sides. And it was the height of the civil rights movement. And she and I were catching the bus to get to work. And she was running late. And she told me, turn your back, Jean. And she said, I got to throw a sign. I said, huh? Throw a sign. Turn your back. So I turned my back. But being the nosy person I am, I turned. She threw a sign. Next thing I know, this white man drives up in his car and says, where do you need to go? And this was the height of discrimination. And I saw her, and she got in the car and waved, see you. And I thought, she's leaving me here. I couldn't get in that car. But that really happened. But it showed me something about my grandmother. My grandmother knew how to network. My grandmother knew how to interact with people. And she was a strong, very bright, very enterprising woman.
Thank you so much. Your stories are phenomenal. And a common thread that I've heard through is family and the pivotal role that family plays. And, as a young father of 4 children, on behalf of all children around the world, we say thank you to grandmas and grandpas and those who are out, because you help us sustain and we look to your wisdom to help us raise our kids. Can you share a little bit, and I'll start with you, Sister Lovelady, can you share a little bit on the impact that family has had on you as you've come up through the years?
Well, my parents were very strict. I'll tell you that. They were very strict. And I was in the house a lot because my father, being in business and not having an education, my sister and I, we both helped. We took care of the books. When he went out to deliver his oil, the name of the streets, he would write it down the way he knew that they sounded to him, but we had to figure it out. So that was something growing up. Because, like I said, I was in the house a lot. And I guess growing up, family, they mean a lot to me. My family comes to my house every Sunday, all of them, for dinner. So I spend most of Saturday and a lot of Sunday cooking dinner. But we just have a good time. We giggle. We just have a good time every Sunday. So family means a lot to me. My husband was an only child. So growing up, he didn't really realize what family was like. And to him, he is just ecstatic.
Nice.
It's like every day he's like, when is Debbie coming? Is Debbie coming? When is Linda coming? Is Linda coming? So family is just everything to me. And God has blessed us so much. I can't even begin to tell you how he has blessed us. That's all.
Thank you. Sister Heritage.
Yes. Yes. I could say that I was brought up with parents that were very strict. If you didn't do your chores, you couldn't go to the movies. If you didn't go to Sunday school, you couldn't go nowhere. And you had to be at Sunday school. And then they used to have something called the BTU. And you had to attend that. So Sunday was all about being at church. And I used to complain about that. And I thought, this is really something. We can't do this. We can't do that. We always in church. Every time you look around, you do something wrong. The usher tell your mom you're in trouble. So you just thought, well, oh, wow, what is this? But I'm here to tell you the same thing my parents did with me. I have 4. I did with mom. You had to go to Sunday school, and I even put him in the choir. And my son would say, Mom, how do you know we can sing? I said, doesn't matter, they'll teach you. So, you just go. And they went to choir rehearsal. I would grab my niece. She would come over. And she said, well, where are we going? I said, you're going to go join the choir too. So it's like a thing that when I look back upon it, I don't regret not 1 minute of it. Because the things that my parents did in family, it was good for me because it has brought me a mighty long way. I can look back over my life and say, God has been good to me. I appreciate the people that was teaching me what I needed to know to be a young lady that could be able to stand on her own 2 feet and to be able to feel free. We can talk about racism and I've seen a lot, like I just explained. But I know that I can stand on my own 2 feet and I can go where I want to go and I can be what I want to be because I have Jesus as my Savior. And there's nobody can stop me from doing and being who I should be or what I want to be.
Awesome. So that was great. You made me lose my train of thought, Sister Heritage.
It's really very, when you talk about subjects like that, because I look around and I see some of the things that are happening today with some of our young people, especially our young ladies. I have worked with a lot of young people. I was a Girl Scout leader here in Albany. And The reason why I took on that is because when I would pick up the paper, and it was all negative things all the time. You read the paper, is the child do this, child do that. And over at the high school, there was always problems, everything that you could think of. And I said to myself, only way you can make a difference is to be a part.
Wow. That, and I'm going to ask Sister Shadrick to start us off here. So making a difference and being a part, who, as coming up as young ladies and women in the world, who inspired you? Who was it that, you looked to guidance or wisdom, whether you knew them personally or they were far at a distance? Who inspired you?
Oh, I'd love to respond to that. I'm so honored to have so many role models, male and female. I remember when I took my first job after we came to New York, and I was working at the state education department, and it was a pivotal program. It had never before existed, and we were working in Title I ESEA, and we had to travel. And I shared an office with a gentleman. He was a white man. His name was Don White. And he said to me, one day we were busy working over grants and approving this and approving that. And he looked at me. He said, Betty, God is going to keep you looking good for a long time because he has a lot he wants you to do. And I looked at him and I didn't know what to say. So I didn't say anything. And then we just went on back to our work. But he was really speaking to me what he foresaw for my life. And then when I look back at other individuals, some of my mentors, some of my teachers, my mother, my father, my aunties, and so many people. I had an uncle. His name was Willie, and I loved him dearly. Well, anyway, I was working when I went to go back to college. I was working, and I had worked a whole year, worked 2 jobs, and only had enough money for 1 semester. And I said, I'm going, even if I have to come back. So I stepped out on faith, and my uncle looked at me. He said, go, baby, you go. And so I went. And sure enough, my scholarship came through the 2nd semester. Now, if I hadn't gone on faith, I don't know where I'd be now, but I did. And it just shows how when the things don't always look clear, there is a message there, and that God will light the way for you. One of the things that I say to our children that we work with on the South End is that you can be whoever you want to be. You can be the best you can be. And we instill those messages of hope, inspiration. And we also have to discipline the kids sometimes, not harshly or anything, but showing them that we see more for them than they may see for themselves. And I think when you run across people like that, that touch your life that intimately, you're never the same. Never the same.
Awesome. Thank you. Who inspired you? Who?
Mm-hmm. People. I had my sister, and she's younger than me. She's my baby sister.
Mm-hmm.
I had the organization which was called Businessmen Association approached me about being the chairperson for the first Juneteenth celebration in Buffalo. And I said, oh my Lord. I prayed. I was afraid because that was a big job. It was something that I never could imagine that I would be able to do. I just didn't think so. But my little sister said, you know what? You just afraid of everything. You ought to stop. You can do more than what you do. I want you to go ahead and take that job and just do whatever you can. And remember, that God have you already planned for to do this. Because if he bring you to it, he'll take you through it. Mm. I stayed up all night because floats had to be done. It was a big parade. Matter of fact, they even had state police there, but I didn't know John did. But it was a big thing. And I'm thinking, how am I going to pull off this big parade? And then they decided that they wanted to have a Miss Unity person, a young lady, to be crowned Miss Unity. And that the banks were going to give the reward for her, the prize money and so forth. And they said, we want you to put that together also. I was scared. That was my first big challenge. She said, we're going to do this if all of your sisters and all of your brothers have to come together. You're going to make this. And I'm telling you, I am so proud now when I look back at it, because it turned out to be a big thing. And just to know now, we have a Juneteenth holiday. And that I was part of one of the first to a celebration of Juneteenth in Buffalo.
Awesome. Sister Lovelady, who inspired you?
I would say my father. My mother and my father. My mother was a homemaker, but my father, because he worked so hard. All his life, he worked so hard that, even, like I said, he didn't have an education. And I remember one day I was watching TV and this nun was on and she said, if you know anybody who don't know how to read, you don't have to tell anybody, just let me know who they are. So I went to my father. I didn't think he would be, he would go along with this. And I said, Dad, I said, would you like to learn how to read? And he said, why? And I said, you won't let anybody know about this. And so I told him, and this nun met him in the library at least twice a week. My father learned how to read, and he would open up the newspaper, and it would be just like opening up a new world to him. Every morning he was so anxious to read the newspaper. But he was my role model because he worked so hard. And I didn't work hard, so I didn't follow in his path. But there was also another lady, Miss Cattell. Miss Cattell lived upstairs over us. And she used to take us to church Sunday school every Sunday. And she involved me in a lot of things in the church. I would be her helper with a lot of things. So she was part of being one of my role models, but I would say my father.
Awesome. So I have two more questions, and time is it's just flying by. All of you, faithful members of Macedonian family, and you've mentioned throughout the night this interweaving of faith in your journey. Can you speak a little bit about your faith in Christ and how it sustained you throughout life?
Oh, where would I be if I didn't know the Lord? Where would I be if he hadn't touched me the way he touches me? Oh, when I can look back over my life and all the things that I've gone through, the peaks, the valleys, the moments of darkness, he was there through it all. And I'm just so grateful that I know him. That I know him in the pardon of my sins, that I know him to be who he says he is, that I know him to be faithful, that I know that regardless of what it may look like or what it may be like, that God can always turn it around for your good. And through all my journey, he's been there right by my side. Sometimes I can hear him say, go on, you can do this. Go on, do it, do it, do it. And I say, oh Lord, do you want me to do that? Do it. And when I do it, there's always help that comes from all different arenas that I didn't even think would be there, but it comes through, and I know it was because of him, and that I'm just a vessel. I'm glad I'm one of his vessels. I wouldn't want to work this journey without him, especially with all that's going on in our society right now. It's troubling. It's really troubling. But I know that despite the divisiveness, the incivility, the lies, the bitterness, that God is still God, and that we have to keep looking to him because he's going to change it, and only he can change it. We'll be vessels, but God ultimately is going to get the final say.
Awesome. Sister Love Lady?
My faith. I don't know what I would do without having the faith that I have in God. I have a favorite song, which is Blessed Quietness. Sometimes, I'm by myself a lot in the house, and it's quiet. And like I said, my favorite song is Blessed Quietness. Mm-hmm. I know I can just be quiet and listen, and I can hear God speaking to me so many times. My faith, I can't even describe the faith that I have. God has been so good to me.
Thank you. Thank you, Sister Lovely.
Oh, my faith is just, I don't know how to be able to begin to tell you with the struggles and the ups and downs in life's journey that I just learned to depend on God. I learned to depend on him because he had brought me through this and that. And I'm still here through all kinds of health situations, and I'm still here. And I don't know if anybody have ever been in a situation that nobody else can help you. And the situation got taken care of, and you know that it was only him. So I trust him. I trust him with all my heart. I do nothing without him. Whatever moves that I'm going to make, regardless of what they are, I put him first. I ask for his guidance. I ask him to lead me and guide me and show me. I do nothing without him because I trust him. I trust him. I trust him. My favorite song is Walk With Me, Lord. Walk with me. I sung that song all the way from Buffalo to Albany, asking Jesus to walk with me because I was going somewhere that I knew nothing about. But I know if he go with me, he will make it all right. And I'm okay with that because I'm here today. I'm here today because Jesus stayed with me. And I always have a little something that I say. You will never discover that God is always there. You need to, until you get into a situation where God is the only one that you have. That I look and I tell that to my children. I tell that to them. And I'm grateful to God that all of them have the same kind of spiritual life that I taught them. That if you don't do anything, don't talk to me about what great job you have. My children got some pretty big jobs. They're doing just fine. But you wouldn't have any of that if it wasn't for the Lord. And if it wasn't for somebody praying for you. I always tell anybody, they say, well, Fanny, how do you make it? How do you be able to do this, do that? And I tell them, somebody prayed for me. Somebody prayed for me. And I thank God for that. I thank God.
I had one more question, but I think we're going to end it with that. Thank you so much for your testament and your faith walk. And thank you so much for taking time out of your schedule to come and impart some knowledge and some wisdom and give a little hope and faith to those who have tuned in. Please know that you are appreciated. And please know that we all know that we stand on your shoulders. And we are who we are because of the trails that you have blazed for us.
Yes.
I thank everyone who tuned in. I think the camera's this way. Is the camera this way, Dr. J? Camera's this way. Thank you so much for tuning in tonight for our Wednesday moment as we travel through Women's History Month and highlight every single week members of the Macedonia Baptist Church who have made tremendous impacts, not just at Macedonia, but tremendous impacts in our community. Again, have a great evening, and we'll see you next week.